I didn't actually craft a fresh thumbnail this morning. I just straight up used it. I wonder if that's me.
Oh.
And I already hit the button.
So there's...
So it didn't translate directly over because it was a JPEG and not a PNG. We're rolling if you want to hit the intro.
I was going to hit it. Hey, buttons get pushed on time if I do it.
You taking advantage of my lack of ear? Baklava. That's a winning breakfast there. Good morning.
Yeah. Man, I barely ate anything yesterday. I was still so full from Saturday.
Yeah, so Saturday we went and shot Appalachian Don cooking some barbecue. Let me tell you something. Appalachian Don can cook some barbecue, baby.
Yeah, that brisket belongs in its own food group. The bark off that brisket belongs in its own food group.
Yes. I told him he should peel the bark off the briskets before he chops them and just sell it as its own thing.
Okay, before we get started, yes, we know that the federal government's about to pass some bullshit gun control thing. We're going to let that play a little bit, see exactly what happens and where it goes, and then we'll cover it. We have other things to cover.
We do.
Today.
I do want to say this about the BS gun control maneuver, and that is, it's not enough to get to November and take back the House and Senate in a big red wave. All the numbers seem to suggest that is what's going to happen. That the House and Senate will be in Republican control after November. We'll still have Biden in the White House, so they'll still have to deal with him being able to veto things. But they can bring him to a halt for 2 years, and that may be the extent of what they're able to do.
You know, I think I prefer divided government.
It
can't get anything done? Good.
Generally, I'd agree with you. Normally, I would prefer a divided government that can't get anything done. Where we are right now, we need a united government of conservatives.
Actual not conservatives.
Correct. Basically, the united government of conservatives we have is made up of a group of people who do not currently exist in power. Right? You know, for every Marjorie Taylor Greene you might find, you've got 100 cocaine Mitches. And
yeah, dude, as crazy as she is, at least she's our kind of crazy. And that is exactly where we are at. It's like, okay, fine. I'd actually rather have more Marjorie Taylor Greenes than cocaine Mitches.
And that's a whole other conversation to go down to, but once we get past there. Do what?
But we're not doing that one this morning either.
Correct. But once we get past that point, once we get to that back in control thing, it is imperative that we're putting as much pressure as possible on conservative leadership to take big actions. And I mean ban abortion, repeal all gun laws, to repeal Obamacare, to actually do things, because the rate we're going now, where we've gotten to, is what it means to be a conservative as an elected politician, is that you are no longer conservative of the Constitution and the values of the United States of America. You are only conservative of whatever that shitbag lefty, those libertine nuts did about 10 years ago. You're only conserving what you've already lost.
Hey, Sean Stryker says Marjorie Taylor Greene is not crazy. Sean, I say that affectionately. Up until very recently, I lived in her district and happily voted for her. Okay, I'm just, sometimes we're hyperbolic to make points. So
Indeed.
So she's representing her constituents. I guarantee you, I like I said, I used to live in her district, and you're damn right, she is representing her constituents. There is no doubt about it whatsoever. And
to your point, Steve says, if we don't get inflation under control, none of the rest of it, this matters. I'm going to disagree with you on that, Steve, because if before inflation destroys the country, collapses the government, and plunges us all into anarchy and mob rule, we have been priced out of stockpiling necessary ammunition, it will be a much messier apocalypse.
So,
And of course, we got Steve with First Blood. I see Anarchy's out there in Scrimshaw Rose. Good morning, good morning.
There's a Megan.
Megan's joined us. Good morning. Love you, honey.
Dan, good morning.
Morning.
Patricia.
Yeah, Trish is with us.
St. Michael.
St. Michael. We already said good morning to Sean. And
Crack Shot's in there. There
Crack
it is.
Shot. Yep, there you are. Good morning. And I think that's got us all caught up. So go ahead.
Memes? We could have a couple of memes before we get started with the serious stuff.
Oh, and there's Danny. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Danny.
Well, let's...
I'm too far up.
No,
right there.
no. Let's go ahead and explain. Let's go ahead and explain the inciting incident and why we're going to be talking about it. So, what happened was, and even PJ Media isn't doing the best job of covering it. PJ Media reports 31 Patriot Front members arrested near Idaho Pride event. Right now, PJ Media is pretty conservative. They do a good job. But we have Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Police say that a U-Haul truck carrying 31 members of the Radical Patriot Front group was stopped in the downtown area a couple of blocks from the North Idaho Pride Alliance, which was holding the Coeur d'Alene Pride in the park event. So that's how, that's kind of how the most generous...
Hey, wait, so they were going to go murder a Supreme Court justice?
No.
No, they weren't?
No.
But wait a minute. I thought...
No.
No, they weren't gonna... They were gonna... So, we could totally arrest people for conspiracy to riot, but we can't arrest people who actually riot? And how does one conspire to riot?
And so let me show you for... So the way the lefties are framing this, 31 members of hate group busted near Pride event for planning to riot. Okay, and that's an important piece of this conversation right here. The way that it's being framed is not that there were protesters planning to protest and then they were expected to maybe be at risk of engaging in a riot. Because remember, the whole BLM thing, those were straight up riots. And it looks pretty clear, given the staging of weapons, of bricks and gas cans. There were people putting out weapons and staging basically logistics management points to make sure that the rioters in the Summer of Love BLM riots were well supplied with the weapons that they needed to conduct the violent criminal activity, the several murders and over $2 billion of property damage that they engaged in over the course of the Summer of Love.
We should read one of these articles.
Those were mostly peaceful. So the way it's being framed is that these men, basically they pulled over a U-Haul and it had 31 dudes in it, and they were arrested for planning a riot. And I really, being an intel guy, I really want to know how you got there off of a single, because this is
a tip, a concerned citizen.
Concerned citizen, anonymous tip.
Citizen, so concerned, doing a concern.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to mock the concept. Is it coming across?
I think so. But I think the most correct way to summarize the entirety of the concept is that the press narrative is that 31 men who are members of a hate group that nobody's ever heard of, because even their clearly fake backstory seems to suggest that they've only existed since 2017. And the more we learn, the more we look back, the more I want to say that all of the negative things that occurred as a part of the Charlottesville situation were probably instigated by federal operatives. So you've got a truck full of feds. Protesters.
Well, not saying
rioters.
They're feds.
White supremacists.
We're just not saying they're not feds.
Was pulled over, and it looks to even a casual observer like what happened is a bunch of feds got dressed up like rioters so that a bunch of other feds could get their pictures taken getting arrested.
See, it's the framing. It's the framing, okay? Idaho cops successfully foiled what could have been a repeat of Charlottesville by pulling over a U-Haul truck filled with 31 members of a white supremacist group near a Pride event. It could have been a repeat of Charlottesville,
and that's a pretty fair analogy. The idea that it might have been a repeat of Charlottesville, given that nobody showed up to that either.
Yeah, all 31 of them. So these are the people that couldn't make it to Charlottesville.
Right.
The group called Patriot Front. You probably first heard of them during the deadly Charlottesville protests in 2017. Man, this article is it's amazing with the neuro-linguistic programming there, right? You probably first heard of them during the deadly Charlottesville. No, I didn't, but thanks for planting that thought in my mind.
Gaslighting via NLP.
Yeah.
I'll give you some credit there, Tims.
All right. Police believe the men, many wearing white supremacy insignias, face coverings, and shirts that said "Reclaim America," were planning to riot and go head-to-head with people participating in Pride in the Park event. I still don't see any beer guts. Do you?
Nope. Even the actual cop.
Yeah.
And this is rare. Doesn't look too far. Like, the fattest guy there is actually in kit. Right there.
The city's police chief says someone spotted the group loading into a U-Haul at a nearby hotel and tipped off police. 10 minutes later, heavily armed officers pulled over the truck and arrested the group without incident. Okay.
Without incident.
All right. Wait a minute. So you're telling me? All right. Let's just plan this out. And Alex, you make a fantastic comment. We're gonna come back to it. But let's just play this out, okay? We get together with a couple dozen us's.
Right.
We get kitted out. We go to the U-Haul place a few miles away. We rent a U-Haul. And then we drive away from the U-Haul place. And a concerned citizen makes a phone call. And somehow...
I strongly doubt we all go to the U-Haul place together.
Well, no, let me just finish, okay? And then somehow they're able to get together a whole bunch of heavily armed cops, pull us over, and arrest us. And they do all that in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Is it just... Is the fact that I'm having a difficult time believing the logistics of this... Is that coming through? I hope it's coming through, because I'm not saying it's impossible for police to have that kind of response time, but it's not likely. How about that?
How about this?
Oh, yeah.
Dear feds, At least change the uniform. I mean, you know, even just a little bit of forethought. Like maybe wear red shirts instead. You know, maybe black pants. But yeah. So as we're looking at this, this is the next piece of this that I want to show you. Cops say the group had riot gear, such as shields and at least one smoke grenade. Really? Really? You got a Camelback, right? I mean, this guy's wearing an IFAC, right? I mean, okay. I'll give you, some of us do have kit laying around that's ready to rock and roll. I've got a Camelback. I've still got my Camelback, but I don't think I'd trust it to put. I probably ought to throw it away. But I mean, the whole thing just looks super shady. Meanwhile,
as for why the cops were able to respond so quickly, the chief said they were aware of online threats that had been made leading up to the Pride event and had increased police presence in the area.
That's interesting. You know, that might have been the thing to do on January 6th.
Well, oh, that's yeah. You mean kind of like how Donald?
That's the one where Donald Trump said, "Hey, I want to increase the police presence and put National Guard here."
He said that between 10 and 20,000 National Guard on January 4th.
Yep. And Pelosi said, "No, we don't want them.
It'll look bad." No, she said it would look bad.
Yeah. She was scared to death that they wouldn't get their hearings. So I want to take you guys back real quick and remind you that when we're talking about the feds that arrested these not feds, these totally not feds, we're talking about people like the 13 men charged in the alleged plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, in which more than half of the 13 men involved in the plot were feds, either active agents or informants. And now keep in mind, the only thing that they were able to charge the guys who actually got charged with was some kind of conspiracy to commit, because it came out in the court that all of the talk about how everybody who said they wanted to kill Whitmer or open fire on the governor's mansion or actually kidnap her, it turned out that those three allegations, all of those were things that were suggested to the group at large by the feds that were outed through the activity. And the only reason that they couldn't get anybody else, that they couldn't get any actual people charged, is because all the people that were wrapped up in this ridiculous thing were all like, whoa, I don't want to kill nobody.
Yeah, like, look, we'll get together and talk a bunch of shit, but we don't actually want to murder the governor. You guys are kind of weird.
Yeah, you guys are crazy.
And you smell like protein shakes for some reason.
And you glow in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. So
if it smells like protein shakes and glows in the dark, it's a fed. Demography now. You're adorable.
Well, we keep saying that they're... Okay, to be clear, we're saying that they're likely to be feds because just about every other time something like this happens, it turns out that a certain percentage of the people are in fact feds. And as we're comparing to what happened with Gretchen Whitmer, it's even incited by the feds. Like, it's a prosecution in search of a crime, and damn it, if they have to manufacture one, they will.
Exactly.
So...
And we're not talking about something that's we're just pulling out of our asses. You see this thing, it looks suspicious. And the fact is that this suspicious thing is something that these feds have done repeatedly. So, conspiring to counter-protest. Well, demography, what they've been arrested for is conspiring to commit a riot, or planning to commit a riot. And I don't know where you pull that claim from on a single hot tip, on a single anonymous tip, because that's what's being claimed by the feds, is that they got one anonymous tip, and on that they arrested 31 men for a very serious felony crime.
Well, it can't be that big of a serious crime because they're being held on $300 bail. If your bail is less than $1,000, you ain't accused of a felony.
Correct.
Like, that's just a fact.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay. So, in all seriousness, demography, you say you know a couple of these people. If you care to give us the inside track and we can report more complete data, we're happy to do it, even if we're wrong. So please.
And demography, what you're saying there is, so they said, hey guys, let's go riot. Who says that? They have counter-protested a bunch of times without rioting. Exactly, that's part of our point. Who the hell says, hey guys, let's go riot? But what they're being accused of here is that's exactly what happened, is they said, hey, we're going to go have a riot. We're going to go have us a riot. And as far as whether or not they're white nationalists, I don't doubt that at all. But I guarantee you this: if you are talking to or involved with any group that is openly and vociferously white nationalist, if they are actually white nationalists, credibly white nationalists, a large percentage of them are feds. And you need, anytime you're involved with an organization that is engaged in any kind of activity that has any sort of opposition, right? Whether you're talking about being in the military, working in clandestine services, being a police officer, being involved in any political organization, any organization that takes a stance that has opposition. It is not that I guarantee you that it is the case, but it is rather that it is tactically and strategically prudent to assume that it is the case that 20% of your membership are enemy operatives.
So, the Unverified Bear from UK.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I hope you sub and keep coming back.
Somebody from across the pond is watching us. All right, let's go back to Alex's comment because he really helped punch things home.
He did.
Oh, back down. There you go. There
we go.
Alex says, we complain when they fail to see the flags and someone goes on to commit a shooting. Wasn't this preemptive policing? I don't like it, but isn't it important to be consistent?
And it is important to be consistent. In the cases of the mass shootings that you're talking about, where you see the flags, there were lots of flags. There were repeated infractions. There were published manifestos.
Literally in almost every case.
Yeah.
Like,
there were published manifestos.
I'm going to go kill a bunch of black people, or I'm going to go kill a bunch of gay people, exactly. And I'm a giant communist, and I'm doing the Lord's work. And
in this case, there's no indication that there were a large number of flags like that. Rather, the claim that's being made by the primary narrative and by the police generally is that there was a single unanimous tip, and that was sufficient to go and conduct these arrests. And even though we said we weren't going to dig into it too much, that is relevant when we're talking about the red flag laws that so many of the politicians keep wanting to put forward. Understand, under the proposed red flag laws, it's enough for a jilted lover to say, he said mean words to me, and the police get to take your guns away. And there's probably a world where the litigation, the criminal prosecution or civil litigation that surrounds the illegal, unconstitutional seizure of your weapons based on that single person's unverifiable account, that you get your weapon back, after several years of that court process.
The question
and therein lies the problem.
The question is, do you think Amber Heard would have said, go get Johnny Depp's guns, I'm afraid of him?
100%, yeah.
I mean, because that's what it boils down to. Okay? And again, repeal all gun laws, arm the world. Thank you.
And then also to your point, Alex,
there were a lot of threats online.
Let's go with that let's go with that for a minute. The police are saying there were a lot of threats online. So yes, I would implore consistency. If a lot of threats online and a single inciting unanimous tip are sufficient to go and arrest 30 people, then how in the hell did Uvalde happen? How did Sandy Hook happen? How did Marjorie Douglas Green happen? And I mean, I can keep going down that list.
Well, I mean,
we can get all the way back to Columbine.
Well, even if you throw out the school shootings, what these guys, okay, they're trying to stop a riot. Fine. What should be pretty fucking easy to do with BLM. It's not like they hide what they're going to do.
Right.
Should be pretty easy to do with Antifa. It's not like they hide what they're going to do. So if we're going to go all pre-crime, and I got to tell you, I think the pre-crime thing's pretty dodgy. Let's be clear.
Yep.
Like, that Minority Report stuff is spooky. And what's really going to happen with these guys, like, how do you even prove, like, intent to do a thing? And just because you intend to do a thing, like, if I'm pissed at you, and I want to punch you in the face, and I tell somebody, I'm going to punch Chris in the face, man. Fuck Chris. And then, like, I calm down and don't do it. Well, I never punched you in the face, right? So I never committed assault and battery, right? So I think this, I think the fact that these fellas are going to go out and what, under the auspices of a pride parade, they're going to put on fishnets and perform fellatio in public, and that's totally okay for them to do because they're the gay and it's June, and that's fine. And I think that's disgusting, and I want to go down there and I want to cause a problem and get this this perverse law-breaking parade shut down because there's going to be sex acts performed in public. And then I think about it and go, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to stay home and drink a six-pack. You know, if God wants to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah again, just let him. Just let him. And then you show up at my house.
Okay, we're running low on time. And I want to get to demography now, because this.
Dude, you said you knew people. Give us the information about the people you know.
Hold on. Clearly, demography is missing the overall point, and that may be on us. So demography points. It's not illegal to be a white nationalist. I never said it was, and maybe you don't understand the point that we're making here. We're not throwing the Patriot Front people under the bus, right? That's not the point. Our point here is that these guys, let's assume they're not that none of them are feds. Not one of the guys that was arrested were feds. Let's just assume that not one of those guys in the top photo are federal agents. Statistically, that's an unlikely scenario, but let's assume it for a moment. My point is not that it was wrong for the police to stop a riot if they had really good cause to believe that there was going to be a riot. My point is, and this ties into the January 6th hearings too, it's awfully convenient for the feds to be conducting an arrest like this, and on the front end they're saying it was going to be a riot, we know it was going to be a riot, that's why we shut it down. We can't be bothered to investigate credible claims that someone's going to commit a mass murder,
or kill a Supreme Court justice.
If you're going to commit the crime of being white in public, we're more than happy to round you up.
Yeah, don't be proud of your skin, unless you're black or Latino or Asian.
So it's not. I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying that Patriot Front is doing anything wrong. In fact, if these guys were all, if they were all legitimate, white nationalists or whatever, and what they were there to do was counter protest a pride festival, hey, go with my blessing. That's fine. That's perfectly within your constitutional rights.
I feel like demography now it might have missed it. Because we don't. We're all for counter-protesting. Like, we started off June 1st with a show about how much woke bullshit Pride Month is, okay? It's, I guess part of what we're driving at is clearly the federal government has the resources and the capability of preemptively shutting shit like this down. It just never seems to happen to BLM.
Right. So, okay, we're running up on time, and unfortunately, I don't have enough time to play with going over too much this morning. I spent too much time dealing with comments, so we're gonna have to get we're gonna have to get to my other broader point in more detail in a later show, probably this week, hopefully maybe tomorrow. But the thing that I want you guys to be paying attention to, when you look at the January 6th hearings, you look at how many fake crimes and controversies have been staged by the feds. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's not a guess. That's not an assumption. You know, when you look at the Whitmer situation and several others, even Waco, right, where you have a Fed that created the crime so that they could pretend to be controlling crime, and the result was a family was slaughtered, right? That's what happened at Waco, is feds tried to coerce a civilian into committing crimes.
No, not Waco.
Ruby Ridge. I'm sorry.
Waco's
Ruby Ridge.
Waco's
you're
a completely different fuck up by the
yes,
federal government
you're right.
that
You're,
got women
right.
and children killed.
Thank you for correcting me. You're right. I don't know why I was thinking Waco instead of Ruby Ridge.
Well, I mean, it's just been so many times where the feds have fucked up and gotten women and children killed.
But you see this massive investigation and the primetime coverage of the January 6th situation, and if you're not thinking, wait a minute, what about May 29th, right? Tim Pool's been talking about this more and more lately. On May 29th, when all the headlines read that evil old President Trump ordered his police to go out and use pepper spray on and tear gas on peaceful protesters. Those peaceful protesters injured 189 police officers
and lit a church on fire.
After tearing down the barriers around the White House, were barely stopped from setting the White House on fire, and then settled for burning down the church across the street. Where's the investigation? So the trick is this: the things that you need to understand. It's not. It used to be that the Second Amendment was important because if the government has a monopoly on violence, then you cannot be free from tyranny. Today, the government no longer has the monopoly on violence. The radical left does. The left is in control of the federal agencies to such an extent that it is using federal agencies, federal law enforcement, to do things like arrest the front runners of, FBI arrest Michigan Republican gubernatorial candidate Ryan Kelly over January 6th misdemeanor charges. He's leading Whitmer in the polls, and all of a sudden they've got some trumped up charges to throw him in jail over. The left has weaponized the government structure such that the left and their violent terrorist supporters like BLM and Planned Parenthood have immunity to conduct violence for political purposes. And we have a word for that. It's called terrorism. And it's gone so far that the left-wing Democrat politicians feel like, and they've proved it to be the case, that they can speak with impunity in support of and donate money to further violence and riots. Even Jen Psaki, speaking officially on behalf of the White House, said, we need more of this. We need more of these protests. And what was she talking about? She was talking about protesters going to the homes of Supreme Court justices, where, as we talked about just a moment ago, we just saw somebody actually go to Brett Kavanaugh's house with the intent, by his own admission, of assassinating Justice Kavanaugh.
And his family.
And pay attention, guys, that barely made it into the papers. Barely made it into headlines. It wouldn't have made it anywhere if it hadn't been for larger platforms like Daily Wire and Mug Club with Crowder and Shapiro in them. If it weren't for those guys talking about it, it wouldn't even exist.
Just real quick, I just want to FBI arrests Michigan Republican gubernatorial candidate Ryan Kelly on January 6 misdemeanor charges. All right, let's even throw out the politician part of it and how spooky it is. Be like, oh, you're taking the lead. Time to hobble you. The FBI bothers wasting time arresting people on misdemeanor charges?
Yeah.
Like, really? That's what the FBI is good for? Arresting people on misdemeanor charges? Boy, there's your tax dollars at work. I mean, it's fine. This is all fine. It's just...
Yeah.
It's fine.
So, and I'd like to keep going on this, but I got to get down the road.
Finish this. Yeah. Come back tomorrow, because we might just have to... Maybe tomorrow will be a Me More Tuesday, and then we can finish the discussion.
That might have to be the thing, because we're looking at some 1984 in a big way here. It sounds cliche. I promise you it's not. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow.